Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Version 1, a podcast where interesting people come to talk about their creative processes, imposter syndrome, inspirations, failures along the way, and much more. I'm your host, Waverly, and we are at My Friend's Basement Podcast Studio in Brooklyn, New York. Follow the show on Instagram at Version 1 Podcast, subscribe to our Substack, version1podcast.substack.com, and you can also find me on buymeacoffee.com/Waverly Colville. And you can listen to this episode normally or head over to YouTube to watch the video version and leave us a nice review. All right. I am joined today by my guest, underwater photographer Dara Dives. How are you, Dara? Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I just want to start off with having you introduce yourself.
That's always a much more difficult question than I think it should be, probably for most people. I am an underwater photographer, a freediving instructor, documentary filmmaker, and about 100 other things, depending on the day.
Yeah, you do so many cool things. We originally connected on Facebook and then on Instagram, and I was checking out your work, and I thought it was so beautiful. I'm a big scuba diver myself, and I take videos on my GoPro, but they're nowhere near as beautiful and cinematic as your work. You're like a real professional. I just kind of do my videos for fun. So that's why I'm so excited to talk to you and learn a lot from you and your journey. To start off, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A mermaid.
I mean, you kind of are now.
Yeah, it's worked out pretty well. I'm one of those, I guess, strange people that kind of knew from jump what I wanted to be. On my way to preschool every day, I would sing the entire soundtrack from The Little Mermaid, and I would always wear my Little Mermaid dress, and it was a whole thing. And then pretty early on, when I was maybe 6 or so, I had an uncle who showed me Jurassic Park when I was obviously way too young for it, and was kind of terrified of it. But he kind of, while we were watching it, he talked me through it. It was like, oh, do you know how I did this? I did it like this, this, and this. Like, oh, do you know how they did that effect? Like this. And kind of seeing behind the scenes taught me to not be afraid of it. And then that made me fall in love with film. And so it just sort of, I think I never planned to become an underwater filmmaker, even though, but now that it's happened, I'm like, oh yes, that was obvious. That was kind of always the trajectory, I think.
Yeah, hindsight's 2020. You can see how you ended up there. Did you grow up around the water?
Not exactly. I grew up in Jersey, but away from the coast. But we went to the beach every summer, and it was always my happy place. I was always definitely my best and my most authentic self when we were on trips to the beach. So
yeah, that's awesome. When you were growing up, and maybe when you're thinking about what you wanted to do for a career, how did you figure out that doing all the things that you do, because you do so many different things around water and around media, could be a career and not a hobby, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think so growing up, I always knew I wanted to be a filmmaker, and the water wasn't really part of that at first, because I just didn't really know that was an option. So I always wanted to be a filmmaker, and I guess I didn't ever really question it too much. I had periods where it was oh no, maybe I'll be a writer, or maybe I'll be a primatologist or whatever. But for the most part, I was pretty consistent on this one thing. And I just felt like that was the thing that I was good at. It was the thing that always came the most naturally to me. So I just never seriously considered anything else. And then the condensed version then, only applied to film schools when it was time for university. Graduated, moved to New York, was working in film, and very quickly was oh, I hate this, actually. This is miserable. But it was the only thing I had ever actually considered doing. So I went through that oh God, what am I going to do with my life thing that I think a lot of people have for the first time as teenagers, but in my early 20s. And then that led me down the path of finding diving and everything.
Oh my gosh, I have such a similar story.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I used to work in production, and it sucks.
It does.
There's really no other way to say. I mean, some people are cut out for it. Maybe I'm just not. I should say because I still technically work in production, but I'm not cut out for the being screamed at and being treated there's a lot of production environments that are great, and there's a lot that are very toxic, and unfortunately I've experienced both, but it very much put me off
totally
in a lot of years. But I also started scuba diving in my early 20s, and then I switched. I was doing production. I'm not an underwater videographer, but around the same time I did start scuba diving as a hobby. How did you start scuba diving? Because it kind of sounds like you started also in your early 20s.
Yeah, it was something I always wanted to do at some point in my life. And then I was in Thailand when I was 23 or 22, maybe. I don't know. And yeah, just signed up for my first course, and that was kind of that. Just fell in love with it immediately.
Yeah. And then once you started diving, where did scuba diving like take you? Like what were some of your early like adventures?
Oh, I went all over. At that time, I was working in an advertising job here that I hated, and I would like save up as much as I could, and then leave on scuba trips for as long as possible. And I think, let's see, at that time, I did Thailand. I went to Borneo. I went to Egypt and Turkey. Those were the big ones, I guess, in the early years. Yeah.
Nice. And what was it about scuba diving that made you fall in love with it?
Well, at that period of my life, I had been dealing with chronic depression and anxiety for a long time, and nothing really seemed to make a dent in it except being underwater. And so when I was scuba diving, kind of the voices would quiet and I could breathe easier, and I just felt present and calm and happy in a way that I really didn't in most other moments of my life. So it's hard to not become obsessed, right? It was a very big part of my healing journey for sure.
Wow, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, I find it, and the reason why I fell in love with it is that it's so meditative.
Mhm.
You can't do anything else. You can't like listen to music. You can't talk. You
Mhm.
can't, be on your phone or anything. You just literally have the sounds of your breathing
Mhm.
and that's why I love it. So it's very, very similar to you.
Yeah.
How did you make the transition to you're working in advertising in New York, you're scuba diving on the side on vacations a couple times a year to it becoming your full-time job?
I think like for a lot of people, COVID kind of flipped my life upside down, but for me in really great ways. I got quite lucky with that. So when COVID hit, I was living in Bushwick. I was here for the first 6 months or so and needed to leave for so many reasons. I'm sure you understand. And didn't know where to go, wound up in New Mexico for a while. And while I was there, or I should say, right before the pandemic started, I was like, okay, I am determined. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to figure out how I can be working underwater. I want to, get into underwater film work. I want to do, take the film skills that I have and apply them to marine conservation, get out of production because it feels so icky and toxic. And so I spent a large chunk of my savings on like a whole underwater camera setup. And then I like booked myself a trip to Indonesia to do my dive master training. And then like a week later, the world shut down. And so now I'm in Brooklyn and I've got like boxes of underwater camera equipment in my closet. And I'm like, all right, this isn't, I need toilet paper. I don't need this. But so that I had like kind of made that decision for myself before the pandemic, even though I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just was like, I'm going to figure this out. And then I just kind of got lucky really after a few months of the pandemic. Someone connected me with somebody in Costa Rica who ran a scuba shop and a marine conservation nonprofit. So he invited me to come down, do my scuba instructor training, and come and do some photo video stuff for the nonprofit. So I left and started that way.
Wait, where in Costa Rica? Because that's where I did my open water.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
I was in Potrero, like near Tamarindo.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I did mine in Manuel Antonio.
Okay. Was it, I bet that I know. I can't remember the names of the shops, but
it was Oceans, I think Oceans Unlimited or something.
I have friends who used to work for them. Yeah.
Yeah. I unfortunately, like my first scuba diving experience was kind of really bad and it's no fault of the dive shop. It's literally the Pacific Ocean. Yeah. That day was so rough that they almost canceled it, but then they were like, no, it's fine. We'll just like stay closer to the shore or whatever. And the visibility was basically zero. Like I could barely like see you and you're like 2 feet away from me. The waves were so rocky and It was horrible. And the dive instructor who was doing the open water exam for me said, if you can dive in this, you can dive in anything.
Mhm.
So don't let this deter you from scuba diving because it's literally only up from here. So I'm kind of glad I was like, okay, like I've experienced the worst of it. I
Mhm.
lived, and then since then I've dove in much clearer waters in the Caribbean, but the Pacific Ocean can be a little tough.
Yeah, I've had some of my absolute best dives there and almost all of my worst dives. It's really, really hit or miss. You have to get very lucky.
How was the dive master program that you did? Because I know it's like a very intense like experience to get your dive master.
Yeah. Gosh, it feels like a different life. It was, I mean, it was intense, but I just felt like I had been waiting for it for so long. And after being, cooped up during the pandemic for a year before I got out there, like I didn't care. I was just happy for every challenge that it threw at me.
Yeah, for sure. It's a couple of months, or how long is the training?
It depends. So the minimum is 4 weeks, but ideally you do at least 6. Mine was, since I was kind of working at the shop indefinitely, there wasn't really like a set time. They're just like, okay, we're going to start and we'll just kind of like do dive master training until it's time to start the instructor development course.
Gotcha. And then you were starting to do underwater photography at the time, right?
Mhm.
So like what were some of your first shoots like?
So it was tough because the main thing I wanted to be doing was practicing my underwater photography. And I made a friend, his name's Diego, and he had been shooting underwater for a couple decades at that point, and he was an incredible photographer, like truly amazing photographer and human. And so he kind of became my mentor while I was there, which was enormously helpful. And so all I really wanted to do was shoot, but I had, it was hard to get time to do that because I was also like teaching and working for the shop, and the owner of this shop was extremely strict about like us not having cameras or anything if we're with clients, which there's reasons for that, but also not to the degree that was. But anyway, so I didn't get as much time to work on it as I really wanted. But yeah, so it's just sort of like whenever I could fit it in, I would like just go out and like be kind of tagging along and shooting all the wildlife I could and everything, and just kind of experimenting with the equipment, trying to figure out how it worked. Like I was in the beginning, was so afraid to even like touch any of it. I was like, I'm gonna break it. I don't know how to put it together. Like, but over time, just kind of building that confidence of like knowing how to use the equipment, understanding kind of the light underwater, getting to know the personalities of different wildlife you encounter so you can figure out the best ways to shoot different creatures and things like this.
Yeah. What were some mistakes or challenges that you had during those early days that taught you important lessons that you use today?
That's a good question. I'd say definitely roll longer than you think you need to, because there were so many times where I would cut and then immediately after I stopped filming, something really cool would happen. Oh man, okay. And yeah, I think just like the biggest lesson I learned through that was to just like not give up on it, I guess, because there were a lot of periods of time while I was trying to learn this where it was like, this sucks. Like I'm never going to be good at this. Like every shot I take like looks like garbage, all of this. And so just like having the will to kind of persevere when all of the stuff you're making is crap was a big skill that I had to learn pretty early on.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's so applicable to anybody in any creative field because normally like the first versions of like whatever your thing is aren't very good.
Totally.
And it's frustrating and it's easy to give up during that period before you get good or what's in your head or what you imagine you want to produce in your head. So how did you not give up when you were having those moments of self-doubt?
I feel like when I'm interested in something, I become kind of obsessive to a fault almost. And I just knew I was like, I can't give up on this because if I keep doing it, either I will get better or I won't. But if I give up, then I definitely won't get better. Right. So it just sort of felt like I just was very determined.
Yeah, I love that. And so as you're shooting these like fish and you're working for the nonprofit, what was sort of like the next step in your career following that time of your life?
So after I'd been there for about a year or a little less, maybe, we had a really big group one day, like 30 something high school kids coming down from the States. We had to all do Discover dives with, which was a whole story.
Sounds like a lot.
Yeah. Around that time, I was like, I think I need a new job. But we had, my boss had to bring in other higher additional instructors to accommodate this group. And one of these people was a guy who lives down in Quepos, Manuel Antonio area, who was a scuba instructor, but primarily owns a freediving shop now. I was working on getting freediving started in Costa Rica. And so I was talking with him about it. And I was like, oh, don't you miss scuba diving? And he was like, never. And I couldn't fathom. I was like, what are you talking? But it's everything. And he's like, no, once you start freediving, you just won't scuba anymore. And I was like, that's crazy. That's crazy. So about a month after that, we were closed for rainy season. I had a little time off. So I went down to his shop and learned to freedive. And he was 100% right.
Okay, wait, I'm still in the camp of like, how? So like, what convinced you? Because freediving to me sounds way more, I guess, limiting than scuba diving because you're only in like under for one breath. So like, convince me.
Okay, let's go.
Why do you love it? Yeah.
This is a long answer, but there's a few answers to this. So yes, you get less bottom time. So there absolutely are moments where I would choose scuba over freediving, but there's like this many of them. When it comes to wildlife encounters, freediving is great because you don't have the bubbles, which scare so many animals away. It's so like loud and noisy and disruptive. Like when you're freediving, you are a marine animal just like them. So you end up having kind of closer encounters and more sort of I guess, aligned experiences where like they will come and be more curious about you. They feel safer around you than you're going to get with scuba, just because it's like when you have all that gear on, you're a strange alien making all this noise. It's weird, But when you're freediving, it's like, okay, you move like me, just really slow and not as elegantly. And so it's like you're kind of on the same level. And so there's that kind of shared trust, right? So in terms of marine experiences, freediving has that benefit. But I think there's something like when you're scuba diving, you are putting a lot of trust in things that are external. So you're putting a lot of trust into this equipment and these, stuff outside of you. With freediving, you're putting all that trust in yourself. And I think there's something really powerful about this. Like freediving changes you. Everything I said before about scuba diving being really healing for depression, anxiety, and everything, freediving is the same tenfold. Because when you're down there on one breath and it's just you and your breath, there is nothing else. You can't hide from yourself. There's no like stories or anything. Like you can't hide behind anything. It's like that. It's just you're stripped down to your core, to your truth. You have to face yourself. And that is sometimes really hard, but also very beautiful and healing at the same time.
Okay. Wow. The way you said it is so poetic. I have never tried freediving. I think the reason I find it a lot scarier than scuba is I have asthma, and it's not so bad that I can't scuba dive. Like I don't really have like asthma attacks unless I'm like around a cat, which like in the ocean is not a problem, know? So I got like medical clearance to scuba dive, but like I think that like holding my breath feels really scary to me because I have had asthma attacks where like I can't breathe, you know what I mean? So like I think there's a big psychological hurdle for me there, but you put it so beautifully and so poetically that I'm like, oh shit, I have to try it.
Yes.
How do you train to hold your breath for like 2-3 minutes at a time? And also like if you're going down like 50 feet or so, like when in diving you have to like do a safety stop, but like why don't you have to do that when you're free diving?
Love it. I'm such a nerd. I'm like, yes, bring it on. All the questions. Let's go. Okay. So people can actually hold their breath for a lot longer than most people realize without training. So what'll happen a lot when I'm teaching, level 1 beginners, people will come and be like, oh, I really want to do this, but like, I don't think I can. Like, I can't hold my breath. I can only hold my breath for 20 seconds or whatever. I'm like, okay, well, we'll see, We put them in the pool. And like usually in the beginning, we talk about a couple of little things, but for the most part, it's like, let's just get in and see where you're at, And pretty quickly, sometimes on the first or second go, people hold their breath for a minute or a minute and a half. I've seen brand new students hold their breath for 2 minutes without any training. We have this natural ability. So we actually have a bunch of things our body does when we're in water, specifically freediving, which we'll get to your other question. So we have something called the mammalian diving reflex, which only activates when we are in the water and not breathing. So for example, you can hold your breath for longer in water than you can on land. It also does, there's like, without getting too technical and everything, there's this whole blood shift that happens when you're underwater, under pressure. So like the blood from your extremities will kind of move to your core to kind of protect your, vital organs. Your heartbeat slows down. Your whole body just kind of goes into this state of like super chill, basically, is I think the scientific term.
Yeah.
And this only will happen when you are freediving, not with scuba. And so the reason why you don't need to do safety stops with freediving is because when you are scuba diving, we're breathing oxygen at depth, right? And this is creating this buildup of nitrogen. It's a super, super unnatural thing to do. Whereas freediving, we are actually evolved to do this, which we can see in things like the mammalian diving reflex and a few other things that our body just naturally does. And so when we are freediving, our body basically knows how to handle it. So we don't have to off gas so much. We're also not building up as much nitrogen on a free dive because we're only down there for a few minutes instead of 45 minutes or an hour, right? But the big difference is because we're not breathing oxygen at depth, our body is able to kind of cope with the pressure in more natural ways.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And do you have to have a certification to free dive, or could I just jump in the ocean and try?
So you technically don't need to have a certification. You could just go out and go for it. That is one of the nice things. Like with scuba, obviously you have to have this certification to dive there and that to do this. And freediving is a lot less prohibitive in this way. It's also a lot less cost prohibitive too. But I always do recommend people take at least one level 1 course, just so you can learn to do it safely, learn to do it properly, and you'll learn a lot of really useful information that will make you a better diver. And we also the number 1 rule in freediving is never dive alone, because it's actually a lot safer than scuba. The rate of incidents in freediving is a lot lower, but accidents can happen, blackouts can happen. And if you, go diving and you black out and you have a buddy with you and you're practicing safe protocols, they know how to rescue you and you're going to be fine in, a minute. It's not a big drama. But if you're alone, you black out in the water, then that's it. And so I highly recommend everybody take a course, just learn the basics. And if you never take another course after that, that's totally fine. It doesn't really matter. But just to get started off on the right foot.
Okay, you have convinced me to at least take a level 1 course. I'm going to Mexico in November for a wedding, so
amazing.
Maybe I'll try to squeeze a course because it's probably only a couple hours.
It's similar. It's kind of structured similarly to a scuba open water course. So it'll be a couple of days.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Okay, well maybe I'll have to make time for it because it does sound amazing, and you did a good job of convincing me. Because I've never tried it, and I spoke to someone else who does free diving, and she said a lot of very similar things. Mm-hmm. And it's incredible but she doesn't scuba, so she didn't have the comparison. So I thought that what you said, comparing the two, is really interesting. So I'll have to try it.
Yeah, I'll be in Nicaragua for the rest of the year, so come down and learn to dive.
Ooh, okay. Don't tempt me. So how did you start doing fine art underwater photography?
That's a pretty new thing for me. And I think, how did I start that? I don't know. I feel like sometimes I just wake up and I'm like, I'm just going to start doing this thing now. And I don't know where it comes from. This is kind of one of those. I guess with freediving, freedivers are very generally playful people who just love to do silly stuff in the water. And I was freediving in Mexico, actually, in the cenotes a couple years ago. And it was just, at that point in time, I was going through some stuff that made actual depth training just not feel good in my body. So that week I was mostly focused on photography. And so every day I would just go out and just kind of play with the other divers and we just shoot whatever. And I got some stuff that I thought was really cool and interesting and beautiful and unexpected. And that was also the first time that I ever was like, oh, maybe I'm starting to get a little bit good at this. Cool. Okay. And so that's kind of what pushed me towards wanting to do more fine art photography stuff.
Cool. And could you just describe what your work looks like and what you mostly photograph within the fine art world for people who haven't seen your work before?
Sure. I can try. It really honestly changes a lot. I think there's a lot of artists where you go and look at their work and you're like, oh, okay, like you see something and you're like, oh yeah, that's that person because they've got that very distinct style or something. And I don't think I've found that for myself yet. I'm still kind of experimenting. So generally, I'm pretty much always shooting freedivers. I love working with fabric underwater, and I love like working with like I generally don't shoot when I can help it divers in like full wetsuits and stuff just because like the skin tones, like the warm skin tones compared to the cool waters always makes a more beautiful image. So I do a lot of like underwater nude shoots and things like this. Yeah, and I've been trying whenever it's possible I love to do shoots with like freedivers and wildlife together, but that can be hard to plan for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So it kind of varies, but yeah, kind of a lot of stuff with that. But the fabric is kind of one of the most inspiring toys for me at the moment with fine art photography because just the way it moves in the water, it's a whole character in and of itself.
Yeah, for sure. For anyone listening, if they go on your Instagram, like I was doing this morning, there's women in these beautiful flowy dresses underwater. And I really like it's hard to describe. So everyone go look, but it's very beautiful. And what were you inspired by, or where do you like source inspiration when you're planning your shoots?
It really varies. Sometimes from, other visual things I see. Like I follow most of my Instagram feed is other photographers. So I'm always so inspired by the beautiful stuff other people are creating. I also get really inspired by music and kind of feeling into sort of like sometimes a song will inspire something and I'm like, oh, this sort of like feels like this thing that could like translate into this kind of image. Let's go play. But I know this is a little bit silly, I guess, for a visual artist, but I'm not actually a very visual person. So I don't really usually go into a shoot being like, yes, I have this image in mind that I'm going to create. It's more so I'll kind of create a situation and then go out and shoot what happens. So, for example, a lot of the photos, if you scroll back enough, I guess this was a year or two ago now, there's a bunch of photos of a few different people with this like white fabric in the ocean. And on that day, I had like, I think 5 diver friends, and we had these huge, huge sheets of transparent white gauzy kind of fabric, and so I gave them some instruction, but most of it was like, okay, here's the situation, here's the setup, here's some loose instruction, now go play and just kind of see what comes of that. And we got some really beautiful stuff out of that. So I think my main inspiration tends to be sort of the environment and the people that I'm working with on any given day.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Could you talk to me a bit about what your actual process looks like on the day of a shoot? Like, how do you start your day before getting into the water and actually going out to shoot? Because I imagine there's a lot of really unique, like, production challenges that you have shooting underwater that you wouldn't have on a production like a normal one on land, you know?
It really varies a lot because every body of water is different. Every day is different. Every, model is different. So I usually try and get all my equipment and everything set up the night before so that, because every time you do it the morning of, there's some like weird problem that's never happened before that's going to happen right then, right? But I don't always do it in advance. So try and have everything set up and packed and ready to go the night before, tested and all that. I also usually try and shoot places that I have been to before, so I understand kind of what the environment, how it behaves, what the light's going to be doing, what it looks like. And sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Sometimes you rock up to a place and it's like, okay, cool, let's make it happen, But yeah, so I usually try and have as much done and ready to go before the day of the shoot as possible. And then the day of the shoot, drink my morning smoothie, do my whole personal routine, and then get on the boat or the beach or whatever it is and kind of just like take some time to connect with the people I'll be working with that day, make sure everybody knows what we're trying to do, feels comfortable with it, has time and space to voice any concerns or questions, talk through safety protocols, things like that. And then we just kind of get in and go.
I love that. Who do you mostly work with? Like, do you shoot for brands? Do you just shoot for people who are like, hey, I'm freediving in Mexico. Can you shoot me? Like, who do you normally work with?
I normally work, with divers. This isn't really my main income stream right now, so I'm not, would happily work for brands if anybody wants some underwater photography, or people, sometimes I get people who are like on vacation who aren't divers, who just want like cool underwater shots, and that's always super fun because then I get to like convert somebody to the freediving world while making cool art with them. But a lot of the people that I shoot end up being, friends or people that I meet in my travels who, are just interested in creating something cool. So
yeah, for sure. What are like the biggest like production differences when you are planning like an underwater shoot versus like a regular shoot on land? Like, what are some of the unique things you have to take into account that you wouldn't normally?
Weather is a huge one, because like some rain or some wind or clouds or all that can really, really change the quality of the water very quickly. The visibility in the water makes a huge, huge difference, right? Because that's not really something I can do anything about. There's tricks to shooting to kind of like work with it, but at a certain point, like I can't control the weather, right? So we're really very much at the mercy of the weather. And then safety is another big thing. Which is true on any shoot on land as well, but I think with things in the water, it's something you want to be like very, very consistent and thorough about, and very clear on like what you're going to do. What kind of always having safety divers available whose job is just to like watch out for people and stuff like this. So those are kind of like the big, I guess, water specific things.
Gotcha. And then where are your favorite places in the world to shoot?
Mexico. Yeah, the cenotes are so cool because everyone is so different. They're so like, I could spend the rest of my life shooting in the cenotes in Mexico and be perfectly happy with that.
That's awesome. Could you talk to me a bit about what does your post-production process look like? Because I know there's probably a lot of like color grading and editing that you have to do.
Yeah, I sort of have a system for my Lightroom workflow. But again, every shoot is different. And, even just like if we do part of the shoot and it's sunny and then clouds come, it's like everything's changing. So even within one shoot day, everything is going to be different. So, it just is a lot of like, make some nice tea and sit down and grind away at it. And I usually, a lot of times will end up like editing a bunch of photos from a day and be like, okay, cool, I'm happy with that. And then go and look at another day and be like, oh God, why did we do this like this? We have to start over. And I'll do like a couple iterations of things before I find the kind of the look that I like for that. But one thing that's important to me with editing is kind of maintaining the quality of the specific water that we're working with. So like, for example, the Pacific, right, is chaotic, she's glorious and she sometimes is clear and fabulous, but a lot of times is very intense and, it can be low visibility and sometimes it's very green or whatever. But on a good day, the Pacific is like, it has this very particular shade of blue that is specific to the Pacific, like it's just a different kind of blue than you get in the Atlantic or anywhere else. And so I love to kind of trying to highlight that when I'm shooting in the Pacific on days where it's not green and murky, or on days when it is green and murky. Sometimes that can be a benefit. Like I have a few shots that I have taken on like really icky days that I thought for sure were going to be nothing because the conditions were terrible, but leaning into the murkiness and the spookiness of it kind of really added to the shot. And then, by comparison, then like the Caribbean, a lot of places it's like shooting through glass. Sometimes you can't even see that there is water, which is very fun. But I'm not, when I'm doing a shoot in the Pacific, I'm not trying to make my photos from the Pacific look like they're from the Caribbean, right? So I really want to like enhance and be true to the quality of the water that we shot in.
Yeah, for sure. How did you learn about proper like color grading underwater photos? Because for me, like for people who don't know, like the deeper you go down, the like colors start to disappear. And so it can be really hard to do color correction on underwater footage. So I find it extremely challenging. So I think it's amazing that you're so good at it. How did you learn? Selfishly, I need to know because I need to learn.
It's trial and error, truly. Like I just doing a bunch of stuff that looks like garbage and keep doing it until it looks less like garbage, which is kind of my answer to how I learned most everything. But yeah, I mean, Lightroom has so many great tools for this. So And also, I'll say too, this color issue is a lot easier to deal with freediving photography than scuba photography because you're going to be shallower most of the time. Like I have some photos I've taken freediving at 30 meters, but most of them are in the like 5 to 10 meter range. You don't have quite as much color loss as below. So that's one thing that helps. Another reason to try freediving. But yeah, I find so one of the first things I will do when I'm editing a photo is white balance it. And so a lot of the time, like with the photos I did with that white fabric, that was great because I can just, take the dropper tool and you click on the white and that's it. But a lot of divers will have like, some, a little white mask or white on their fins or whatever. I now dive with fins that have white on them. And when I start a shoot or when I'm on a shoot and the lighting changes quite a bit, I'll take a photo just of my fin. So if the photo I'm working on doesn't have any white in it I can white balance that photo of my fin and then kind of translate it over. And it's not perfect, but it gives me a good starting point. It helps. It helps a lot. So yeah, kind of bringing your own white balance with you. And so doing that, and then also the masking tools, if you haven't messed around with those, like are a game changer because that is kind of the way that I will get the more authentic kind of warm color skin tones and things and like warm colors and coral and stuff when it's relevant and while keeping the blues of the water because without the masking tool it's so hard to balance all that and get that full range of color. But those masking tools are a godsend.
Talk to me about what equipment you use.
So at the moment I'm shooting on a Sony FX3 in a Nauticam housing. I predominantly shoot with a 14 millimeter lens. I love wide angle for underwater because it allows you to get very close to your subject while still having all of them in frame. And, the less water you have between the lens and your subject, the clearer it's going to be. So love a wide angle for this. And the FX3 it's a great camera. It's definitely better for video. So I kind of switched to that when I started the production company because I'm doing a lot more video stuff now. So it's great for photo, but not like the perfect photo camera. It's more of a cinema camera for sure.
Gotcha. And that's the perfect segue into talking about One Breath Productions. You are the founder of it, right?
Co-founder, yeah.
Co-founder of the production company. Could you tell me a bit about what your company does and some of the projects and documentaries you're working on?
Absolutely. So One Breath Deep Productions was started by myself and my co-founder, Allison, who's also one of my best friends. I'm very lucky to get to work with people that I love very dearly. And so One Breath Deep Productions, we started this with the intention of telling freediving stories because at the moment, the majority of freediving stories you hear in the media are about people blacking out and dying and like this, crazy adrenaline junkie stuff. And like, sure, that happens, right? But it's the way that freediving is portrayed in the media currently, it's sort of like only telling stories about people climbing Everest and saying that's what hiking is. It's just not realistic for the majority of people. So we wanted to share freediving stories that kind of were more representative of the larger community, especially because these fear-mongering stories about people blacking out and dying, they make people scared of the sport and they don't want to try. And I really think that everybody should try freediving for so many reasons, as we talked about. So that was kind of how this started. And the first film we worked on was called Breath of Life, El León, about Andres León, who is a man from Costa Rica who was competing in the first ever freediving competition in the country and trying to be the first national record holder in Costa Rica. And he was doing this in honor of his mom, who around that time was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. So we were very lucky to be able to kind of follow his journey, training and preparing and then going through the competition. And it was a really beautiful experience getting to get to know this incredible human and get to be a small part of his story. But also getting to kind of create this film that shows how freediving can be so healing in very difficult times and how, the ocean and connecting to it, it's alchemy. And so That was our first film that was released kind of locally in January.
Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you. We just got accepted to our first film festival like a couple days ago. So really excited about that. Thank you.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so then from there, we originally were planning to make a series. Like Breath of Life was going to be a series where every episode was going to focus on a different diver, blah, blah, blah. And we went to go start shooting the second episode. And pretty quickly we were like, this is not what we think it is. This is something different. And so we went from that to kind of dropping the series thing and stepping away from being strictly freediving focused. And now we're working on a feature about mermaids and marine conservation, which I'm so excited about.
Wait, tell me more about that.
Okay. So this film is called The Element. It's my baby right now. I'm like, it's on my mind every moment of every day. And so mermaids are, when we think about mermaids, so many of us are thinking of them as like, we're taught to think about them kind of in relation to men, right? We think about mermaids as temptresses, sirens, and whatever, but actually mermaids have appeared in mythology from all over the world, from as early as, I believe, 1000 BC in ancient Assyria. And in most of these myths, mermaids are portrayed as protectors of the oceans and the waterways. They're kind of the original conservationists. So we in this film are looking at kind of modern day mermaids, which in some cases it does refer to people who are literally dressing up as mermaids. But more broadly, we're talking about people that are kind of the protectors of our waterways today. And we're kind of looking at this through the lens of mythology because we want to explore the ways that our personal connections, both on an individual and on a collective level, how our connections to the ocean, to the environment impact how we interact with it and how we protect or don't protect it. So we're kind of exploring people that are conservationists through art, storytelling, experience, education, and exploring how our relationship to the world around us can impact the health of the world around us.
Wow, that's incredible.
Thank you.
Who are some of the main characters in that documentary?
We've got a lot. So we're kind of building this mosaic. My goal is to, since these original mermaid myths come from all over the world, I'm really trying to find stories to include in this film also from all over the world. I want people from every continent. Like I'm trying to make this as international as possible. So so far this year we've shot with a woman named Dami, and she's a professional mermaid freediving instructor, and she is such a cool human because her whole kind of approach to life is all about this belief in magic. So she very much believes in magic, and she is very much in control of her life and her experience because of this belief in magic, and she is all about kind of bringing that magic to other people. So through her mermaid workshops and things like this, she's helping other people kind of break down the walls that we create within ourselves and, teaches them how to, again, invite in this sort of like childlike wonder and play and reconnect to that side of themselves, which creates this, because when you have those experiences in the ocean of like play and magic and wonder, then you associate that with the ocean and then you fall in love with it and then you protect what you love, right? So we got to shoot with her for a few weeks this year, which was amazing. We're also going to be working with Cash Daniels, who is a kid in Tennessee who has cleaned up, I don't know the specific numbers, but he's, I think, about to turn 16, and he started a nonprofit when he was 7. And since then, he has cleaned up thousands of pounds of trash from the Tennessee River, which is one of the most polluted waterways in the world, if I am correct in that. So we'll be working with him. We're going to be working with Jason DeCaires Taylor, who is an incredible sculptor who makes these amazing sculptures that are underwater all over the world that are designed as artificial reefs. So they're kind of like art that bring people in, but also like rebuilds the ecosystem in these places. And Hanli Prinsloo from South Africa, who does a lot of really great ocean education work, and a bunch of other people who I can't name just yet. But it's going to be a really cool roster. I'm really excited.
That's incredible. Where are you in the process? Because it sounds like you have to travel a lot to get all of these people on camera and follow them. So like, where are you in that process?
Yeah. We're kind of straddling the line between production and pre-production right now. So we've started shooting with Dami, and now we're kind of in the process of building out our shooting schedule for next year. and grant writing and all that fun stuff. So I'd say, if I were to guess, I'd say we're probably about 10% into shooting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so you have a lot ahead of you.
Yes,
but
we do.
hopefully in like a couple of years from now, we'll all be watching it.
Yes.
Yeah, and you mentioned grant. I was curious, how are you funding it? Is it mostly through grants or crowdfunding or personal investment?
A mix of everything. So we have a private donor who we're super grateful for.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's so rare.
Yes.
Kudos to you. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's truly one of the greatest gifts of my life so far. I mean, to be able to have the kind of creative freedom that I do right now is an enormous gift that I do not take for granted. So we have a private donor who has been, instrumental in us being able to start this project at all. And so now we're applying for grants. We're working on setting up a crowdfunding campaign, which I'm hoping will be up in October. So kind of a little bit of everything.
Totally. Let me know when it's up and I'll share it.
Thank you. I appreciate
anyone
that.
listening can help support this project and you and your work. You've done so many incredible, cool, creative things. I was wondering, like, throughout your career, have you ever experienced imposter syndrome?
All the time.
What does it feel or sound like to you?
It's very much a mean little voice in my head that is telling me I'm not good enough, or I'm not as good as I think, or everybody else is judging me, and things like this. But I've had a lot of that. And I'm not going to say I don't still have it, because I absolutely do. But I think one of the things that I've been experiencing with the films we're making with the production company is I find that each, because obviously when you're making a film, it takes over your life, right? It's such an all-encompassing thing. And so when we were working on El León, the first film, I had horrendously bad imposter syndrome, because I had been to film school, I'd been working in film a lot, but I'd never made a documentary before. I was very focused on narrative fiction before, and so I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do this. Now I have people who have been working for free with me to like get this done, and now I feel responsible for them dedicating their time and energy for this thing that like is gonna suck, and because I'm not good enough and whatever. But that film, what like thematically was so much about believing in yourself, because that's what Leon had to do, right? He was a pretty new freediver at the time, and he was doing something big that hadn't been done before by anybody in the country, and he was going through such a challenging time, and so much of it was about like on your hardest days continuing to believe in yourself. And and so that while I was making the film, that was also the lesson that I was learning. So it was a big kind of thing of like, just kind of like every day, like there were some days where I'd be like, okay, yeah, maybe this is going to be good. Okay. And there were a lot of days where I was like, this is a mistake. And every day I was just like, okay, on your hardest days, you have to choose to believe in yourself. Even if you don't, you have to tell yourself you do. Like, even if you don't feel it, you have to just, tell yourself that you do, even if you feel like you're lying. And then when the film came out and we had, just incredible responses to it, I was like, okay, maybe we can do this. And so I don't feel imposter syndrome so much anymore with the films. I feel a lot more confident about that now. But when I have imposter syndrome with, photography or other things I'm doing, like I've started taking up dance and I'm trying to learn music and, all these other things, I kind of go back to that experience on my own of like, no, like on your hardest days, believe in yourself, because that's all you have.
I love that. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And it's cool that you were going through kind of the same thing that your subject was in your own ways. And you're probably able to, he helped you, you maybe helped him believe in himself. So that's cool that there's like some parallelism there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was there ever a setback or a failure or like a big challenge that made you almost want to quit?
No, mostly because I never really felt like I had another option. I've kind of at this point, I don't know, I feel like for my entire life, I have always been, how do I phrase it? I don't really know how to describe it. And I think there's a lot of things that I don't know. Like if you ask me what I'm, going to be doing in 3 months, I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. And that's true all the time. The fact that I know what I'll be doing, in 2 months is a big deal, right? So on the one hand, I kind of never really know what's going on, but I feel like I've always been connected with a sort of core knowing of like, this is the right direction. Even if I have no idea how it's going to work out and it doesn't look like it's going to, and every part of me is screaming that like, I'm not good enough for this or, whatever it is. I've just always kind of had this thing that is like, nope, this is what you're doing. This is what you're doing. Just keep doing it. So there were definitely times where part of me wanted to give up, cause it was really hard. And in so many ways, so many more ways than I had anticipated it would be. But it also just was sort of like, well, if you give up, what would you do? Like, what other option is there? It's not like, oh, I might give this up to do this other thing I'm excited about. It's like, no, you're going to give this up for what exactly? So just keep doing it.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome that you had so much perseverance. What would you say your definition of success is right now?
Ooh, I love that question. Say my definition of success right now is freedom to choose. Yeah. By which I mean, like I haven't, it's been a while since I have had to like wake up at a certain time, go to an office, do what somebody tells me to do, go home, like that whole thing. And that not doing that has been an enormous blessing for me. And so that is what success, I think, is for me to be able to continue to choose how I spend my time every day. And, I don't care if that comes at the cost of financial stability or like location stability or whatever. Like, I'm more than happy to kind of lean into the trust that everything's always going to work out because it always does. But yeah, for me, success is freedom of choice.
I love that. How do you think your work will change or evolve over the next couple years?
I'm really excited to find out. I don't know. I feel like this film, the film we're working on now, I'm really excited about because it is very different than anything that has been done before, to my knowledge, at least. So we're kind of creating this mosaic of stories. And we're kind of trying to create this flow of these stories with this kind of overarching lens and themes in a different way. And if you asked me what exactly that looks like, I could not tell you. Director Dara is like, I don't know, we're just kind of flowing with it and figuring it out. And editor Dara is internally like, oh God, oh, what are we supposed to do? I don't know. But I know that we're going to figure it out. So I guess I'm excited to see what it becomes because it feels very, I can just feel it feels very important for me in my development as an artist because it's in some ways a kind of big open canvas that I get to be fully creative and explorative with. And I can kind of feel what it's going to be, but I couldn't articulate it at the moment. Which is really exciting. So I'm really enjoying this process of like every day we kind of learn a little bit more information, make new connections, new ideas, stuff like this. And so I'm really enjoying kind of seeing the direction that it's heading in, but I couldn't consciously tell you. I have no idea.
Well, we're all excited to see and follow your work. All right, Dara, this has been amazing. Are you ready to move into the lightning round?
Okay, sure.
What is something new that you've tried lately?
Salsa and zouk.
What's that?
Dancing like salsa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then zouk is like a Brazilian partner dance.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, chips and salsa? And I was like, what's zouk? Okay, cool. Are you liking it?
It's so much fun. Yeah.
Do you just do it in New York? Like, is there a class or like, how does it work?
I've been taking classes at a studio in Jersey, near my parents' place, which has been so much fun. The community there is so friendly. Like, I truly know nothing. I have no idea what I'm doing. But from day one, everyone's been so welcoming and so supportive, which is great because I think if they weren't, I would have quit immediately.
That's awesome. That sounds like so much fun.
It is.
Do you have a lesson or a message that you want to share with listeners?
Oh, yeah. Oh gosh, so many. Magic is real. Believe in yourself always. And yeah, if you believe it can happen, then it can happen.
What is one thing you wish you knew when you were first starting out?
Mm. When I was first starting out, I wish I knew that. Gosh, do I get struck by lightning for taking too long?
No, take as much time as you need.
Oh man, there's like so many things popping into my head. I'm like, which one? Which one? Yeah, first starting out, I think I wish I knew to just not take it so seriously, because I used to be so stressed about like, how am I going to make this happen? And oh, I need this. I need to be able to do this right now. And oh, I'm not good enough. And that person can do this. Why can't I figure it out? And it just doesn't matter. It's just not that serious. You figure everything out in your own time. And if it's not fun, there's no reason to do it. Like, it should be fun. And if it's not fun, find a way to make it fun or do something else.
I love that. All right, Dara, this has been so wonderful. Thank you for all your knowledge. I'm definitely going to go practice my color editing underwater skills and try free diving.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Where can everybody find you, check out your work, support your projects, all the things?
So Instagram is probably best for that. So my personal Instagram and photography when I am not in New York is Dara Dives. Or ideally follow the production company at One Breath Deep Docs, where you'll get all kinds of info and updates about our current film, the film we released earlier this year, behind the scenes stuff, and all kinds of fun things.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dara.
Thank you.